Alright, episode 2 of Doctor Who. Is it good? No. Last week I was very overly positive and hopeful, and I don't want to do it that way. So I just want to be as truthful as I can be. I'm going to let it all out. You're going to know the true side of me. I don't know how much longer I'm going to have all this collection. Okay. First up, the positives. Number 1, Graham. I am loving everything Bradley Walsh is doing in this show. I don't get the relationship they're trying to do with Ryan and him, his character, but he somehow holds that together. Chris Chibnall clearly doesn't know how to handle emotions. The funeral and the eulogy of last episode was great, but the way they kind of pushed forward and moved on from his grandmother's death was a little bit quick. I mean, her death wasn't all that great either. It was kind of just all of a sudden, and, you know, I kind of forgot she was in the episode because I know who the companions are going to be, so the fact she died was like, I guess that's sad. And the relationship they're trying to form with him, and the dude is 19 years old. He's not going to accept someone new as his grandfather. He's not going to call you granddad. Like, he talks to you nicely in this episode. He treats you somewhat as a friend. Don't expect him to call you granddad. Be happy with Graham, okay? In saying that, I love what Bradley Walsh is trying to do with the script he is given. It's the same thing Capaldi put up with, and the same thing Matt Smith put up with, the same thing Jodie's apparently having to put up with. Script's poor, the actors are great. That is something that is truly coming through in this episode as well as last week. So, yeah, Bradley Walsh is great. And like I said, Jodie, she is doing the best she can, but as we know, it's officially a thing we know, these episodes were written for a male doctor. She is adapting lines, and I know it shouldn't matter, but it does. These lines feel like they're written for a Matt Smith or a David Tennant doctor, and so the doctory lines feel a little fake. She's doing the best she can as her doctor to interpret them, but it still sounds like a Matt Smith impression or a David Tennant impression. She does the best when she is looking after non-doctory lines, when she's just speaking normally. That's when her doctor comes through, and I love the way she is taking the doctor, the direction she's taking the doctor, the no-nonsense, just do what she can to save the day. It's great. There's a great scene with her and Ryan in this episode, where, you know, once again, Ryan with his not fear of heights, his off-balance thing, you know, he's like, I don't know if I can do this. She's like, you have already done so much. You know how great you are. You know, that shows the doctor. That is the doctor, and I'm glad we're getting scenes like that with her. And then she tells him, come on, we don't have much time, which is also very much her doctor. I love that. I also really enjoyed the idea of a race across the galaxy. It's a very Doctor Who thing. I mean, it's a very stereotypical thing, as was the bounty hunter from last episode. You know, it's a very sci-fi concept, but it was a very Doctor Who, a very classic Doctor Who, simple idea of people running across the galaxy to get to a point. And yeah, I think they almost pulled it off. I think the two bookends with the not Graham Master was what I was hoping this episode was going to go with. Kind of corny, kooky sort of thing, but it kind of turned into something that was way too serious for what it was. And yeah, I didn't like the direction it ended up going in, but the idea of a race across space, across the galaxy, that was good. It's a clever idea. And the direction of this episode felt miles above last week. Last week, I know I said I liked the look of the series, but I think I just liked the cameras. Really, all the shots were exactly what you'd expect from Doctor Who. You know, no one was making use of these fancy cameras. It just looked better because the cameras cost a lot more. Whereas this week, I feel like the direction took a more sort of stylistic turn. You know, it's still very simple. There was nothing that was out of the ordinary, but, you know, there's a lot more close-up, tight shots, making use of the depth of field, and the lighting overall looked a lot better in this episode. A lot less dark for the sake of being dark. You know, this time they actually use darkness and they use light to accommodate the different scenes. I'll get to the TARDIS in a bit. And I'm about to go into the negative, so you know where the TARDIS lies, but this episode, it kind of felt like filler, which is a weird thing to happen for the second episode of your brand new season. Nothing really mattered in the end. I know we had the TARDIS, but that was kind of crammed in at the last second, in the same way the costume and, you know, the lead into this episode was last week. You know, the whole episode happened, and then it was like, oh yeah, we're going to do that TARDIS thing. We're going to, you know, do something that propelled the series forward. Ah, it's fine, we've got like 2 minutes left. Let's just chuck it in there. And none of the characters changed in the slightest. I didn't expect the Doctor to change. Maybe she kind of grew into her skin a little bit more because she had a costume, she knew where she was, but, you know, she didn't change too much. But the companions, Yaz had nothing to do, Ryan just didn't try to fix up his relationship with Graham. He just did everything he could to stay the same. And, I mean, as I said, I love Graham, but even he didn't have much to do in this episode. The two random extra cameos and the not Grandmaster guy, nothing new happened to them. By the end, the girl was still kind of nice, kind of sarcastic and sly, and the guy was still a total dick. I know he was like, yeah, we both won, but he didn't seem too happy about it. It wasn't like the Doctor made him better. He just kind of accepted that, you know, either he wouldn't win or he would have to win with her. Like, nothing happened. It was a filler episode. The one thing that might be a setup for the future is the Child of Time, or whatever it was, the Girl of Time. But, you know, they quickly killed the baddies that said that, and she was like, what did you say? Friggin' cigar! Like, it didn't really go anywhere, but it was very similar to the Prisoner Zero, you know, the cracks in the skin of the universe, all that, so I don't know if it's setting up something, but I also didn't know, I can't even remember what they were called. The Stenza, I didn't realize they were something I'm gonna have to remember, because they said the Stenza, and I was like, does that just sound like something I've heard of before? And then they were like, oh, it's the guy from last week, and I was like, oh yeah. And I mean, last week he seemed to be a bounty hunter, or at least part of a group of people that just went around the galaxy killing a few people to have trophies on their face. Or at least just him had the trophies on his face. But this week, they turned them into like a Thanos cleansing the universe species. I didn't get that impression last week, so to then just flip it to that, you know, that's kind of a shock. And to make them important to this episode makes me think they're going to be important for the sort of subtle arc of the series. Great. Also, they kicked Tim Shaw off a friggin' crane, like, with no effort. So, to think about his species being the main baddie, I mean, I don't get scared about that. You know, if they're coming back, I'd be like, oh, hopefully there's a few cranes around, or, you know, the Doctor just put some bombs in their neck. Eh. And the actual baddies of this episode were some robots, sniper robots, and some band-aids. Some sentient band-aids. And I mean, fine, very Doctor Who, very much, you know, robots and making household objects a bit scary, but where did they come from? Like, apparently they were not part of the Grand Master's challenge. It's not like he sent the band-aids and the robots there to stop them. Apparently they were part of this world, because the band-aids come out at night. Like, that's the thing on this planet. And I don't know where the robots came from. We kind of skipped over that one, but I just didn't care. I also didn't care for the feeling of this episode. I said it's shot nicely, and it is. It just kind of feels like a fan film on a budget. Almost every scene just started with them, like, running in from a threat that they just avoided, or just running in. There's a threat there. You know, the Doctor does something that is kind of clever, but not really. Like, it doesn't actually make sense in the grand scheme of things. And then they run again because there's another threat. Like, it's exactly how I used to write fan films, and it's exactly how I've seen fan films for Doctor Who on the internet. What'd you do? Oh, I did this clever thing. You know how you went for the gun? Well, I went for the robot stuff inside of it, and I made an EMP thing, and watch, I'm gonna use it. Oh, everyone's dead now. I suppose they are. Uh-oh, they've come back. Quick, let's run. In what way does that speak for a new era of the show? It just feels not just old, but crap. I don't think I'm a fan of the theme. It's stripped back, and sure, it's very classic, but there's nothing iconic about it. There's not anything that's reinvigorating the theme. I know, yay, it's gone back to being original, but that's not exciting. You can't make a new era of the show embracing the old one by just using the old theme with a thicker bass. And along with that, the title sequence, it just kind of felt a little bit messy to me. I love John Smith's work, and I love everything he has done. Check out his YouTube channel, there's a whole heap of cool stuff on there. But this just didn't feel interesting to me. It felt Doctor Who, but as a lot of people have said, it feels like, you know, you've thrown all the classic and new series title sequences into a blender and outputted that, but it looks like that. It looks like if you got a bunch of images and put it in a blender and outputted it, it would just be like, oh, well, that's a mess. A vibrant and swirly mess at that, but just kind of a mess. But I am very excited for more fans to be involved with the show. They know what makes the show good. I just didn't enjoy this personally. I know people have enjoyed it. All on them. I think the biggest problem with this whole episode, and I'm worried the whole season, is it feels like it should be a bingeable Netflix thing. I don't like binging things, but this kind of feels like Chris Chibnall pitched it as a bingeable series on BBC iPlayer, or possibly even sold to Netflix. I feel like all the nuances and references that they've already laid out, like with the Stenza and just, you know, overall the relationships between the characters, I feel like that'll play out so much better once it's watched back to back. And I think the thing that highlights it so much that it might have intended to be a bingeable thing is the fact the titles are in episode 2, in the way that you watch this whole hour-long thing, and the titles are at the top of episode 2, so that you flow straight into it. You have the cliffhanger, the titles, and this episode, and it just continues from there. I just don't think this is a show that is serialized this time. But, no, oh crap, the TARDIS. I mean, it says a lot if I forgot the TARDIS was in this episode. Look, I can see what they're going for, but I also can't because it's just a little bit too dark. Jodie's Doctor is so full of life and so energetic and eccentric that I don't know why her TARDIS is like, the lights are off. It's lit only by the crystal things, which are a little shit. So it just feels weird. Her TARDIS is very reminiscent of Matt Smith's first one, which was bathed in light, and it was just this whimsical, magical environment. I loved that TARDIS. I know most people didn't, but I kind of did. So to have that whimsy of the actual console shrouded in darkness just feels a little bit polarizing and contrasting. I don't know what the aim is there. Also, screw the little TARDIS. Don't freaking have a little TARDIS toy on the TARDIS. Don't. Oh, it made me sick. I wouldn't mind a biscuit dispenser though, that's pretty cool. But yeah, not a big fan. It also just doesn't feel like a home. It feels very weird and dark and creepy. Even the darkness and, you know, the warmth of Tennant's TARDIS, which I feel this one is taken very heavily from, at least felt like you could live in it, and it felt like there was more rooms. This felt like a box that goes into a room, and that is it. Because there's just darkness everywhere. I can't imagine there being living quarters for all 3 companions. You know, if they're sticking around at least episode 3 and possibly episode 4, they're gonna have to be stuck in this TARDIS. These are supposed to be the Doctor's friends and fam, and look, I would find a different roommate if I had to live inside that TARDIS. But look, I've been so friggin' negative on this episode, and it's because I actually legitimately hated it. I didn't leave this going, you know what, I'm gonna be able to talk positively about this. I felt sad. It wasn't Doctor Who for me, and I didn't enjoy it. But if you enjoyed it, please let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you somehow enjoyed this video, even if you do not like my thoughts. And subscribe if you want more stuff. Oh, sorry, I knocked the doors. If you want any of this stuff in this cupboard, I feel like the way this is going, you might need to buy stuff off me, so I'll let you know about that. But until the next video, the Doctor of Who is out. I'm worried about how out of the Doctor of Who I'm gonna be. Anyway, there's 2 videos up there. They're probably interesting. You can also subscribe over there. It's a weird time for me. All this stuff, and I'm not enjoying the show. Alright.